Alright, so this tutorial is going to go through how to draw a two-point perspective utilizing the Lockard method with the depth guess. This is essentially an extension of the one-point depth guess, and in this instance, because we have two vanishing points, we're going to have two depth guesses. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to start off, I've got my horizon line drawn, and I'm going to go ahead and draw my measuring line. And I'm going to make that 6 feet tall, since that's going to be at eye level. Make sure you guys do that at scale. And then I'm going to go ahead and mark this out, dividing that into 6 segments here. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. Then, just like we did in the previous exercises with perspective, we're going to go ahead and draw the vanishing point, and then we're going to connect that vanishing point back. And so now we have drawn this triangle as an infinite plane going back into the horizon. And since I'm talking about the dimensions of the building you guys are going to be doing the interior perspective of, because that's a 28-foot by a 28-foot floor plan, what we're going to do is we're going to generate a 4-foot by 4-foot grid, so we can use that to divide up the space effectively so that we can make things a little bit easier on ourselves. Okay, so from that 4-foot height, I'm also going to project essentially a 4-foot tall plane back into the vanishing point here. So we have 4-foot tall all the way back to infinity. All right, and then from there we're ready to do our depth guess. And so I'm going to go ahead and just start here. And I'm going to pretend like he's falling backwards there. And I'm just going to go ahead and actually, that's essentially what you're going to do, but so I can make this actually accurate for what I'm going to want to do later on. Oh. I'm going to go ahead and generate that. And so we have this guy falling backwards. What that's going to do is that's going to give us, or help us establish our depth here. Okay, and now we have and I'll go ahead and create a new color here. So I'm going to go ahead and take the extra stuff that we're not going to need and put that on this layer here, so I can just turn that off. Now we have a nice grid that we can start to form from this. Okay, and then what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and we need to double stack this. I'm going to go up 2 more feet. Then I'm going to divide this into 2 segments here. So we have our 4-foot on top of our 4-foot. And again, we're going to bring this back to our horizon line. And then this is going to enable us to project this back in through here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this corner and draw through that point and diagonally connect that back. And so we're going to go through and actually draw that and then connect that down. And we're going to draw that. And again, we're just going to come in here, draw that through. And for this guy, I'm going to only go back 12 feet. So that's 4, 8, and then 12. The reason for that is we want to make sure that we're not projecting too far back, because the farther away we get from this measuring line, the more distorted our image is going to become. Okay, so from there we've gone ahead and that has given us the grid establishments for how this is going to move back towards this vanishing point. Now we're ready to go ahead and introduce the second vanishing point. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw that on. And for what I like to do whenever I'm utilizing this method is I like to divide this up into thirds. So this is 1/3 and this is 2/3. And that tends to give you a better rotation visually as you guys are starting to draw this, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and just go through the same process that I went through with the first vanishing point. So I'm going to draw that 4-foot plane. And I'm going to draw that 8-foot plane, or the 4-foot on top of that. So we can see this is now starting to form as if we were going to be drawing a 2-point perspective of the exterior or corner of a building. We can start to do that. So now what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and do the second depth guess. And we're going to go ahead and just take this. And since it's a little bit more severe, I'm going to go ahead and just take that up. Use my reference points here. I'll just pull that up to that point right there. So now I'm going to say that that's 4 feet back. Okay, so if I turn that on here, and I'll put this on my other color here. So each one of these guys represent my depth guesses. And from there I can do exactly what I did with the first operation here. So I can go ahead and draw that up through that from there, because that's 4 feet back, and then project that back. Then I'm going to go ahead and just scale that through there, or extend that line. We're going to go ahead and continue that through. Alright, and we're going to do the same number of times, right where that intersects. We're going to pull that down. Okay? Right, and this is going to make our lives a little bit easier. We're only going to go back again 12 feet, so we're going to create a 12 foot by 12 foot plane. Alright, so now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and generate a new layer, and I'm going to call this the ground. And I'm going to do that in blue so we can actually see this here. And this is akin to you utilizing multiple layers of trace. So what I can do is I set that to the active color that I'm going to draw with. I'm going to go ahead and project that 12 feet back, all the way back there. I'm going to go ahead and project this 12 feet back. And where those two things intersect, we now have a 12 foot by 12 foot square, or 144 square feet. Alright, and so at this point, we're going to be able to go ahead and extend our grid forward. So I'm going to go ahead and, even though I'm going to be working in the same color, I'm working in black, I'm going to go ahead and work in a different layer so I can distinguish that later on down the road. Meanwhile, I'll go ahead and turn off some of the stuff that I don't need. You guys can erase that if you have, once you figured out what your depth guess is. And so now I'm going to be ready to take this, and we're going to take this one plane and extend it forward here. So we'll take this, and we're just going to take that tool and project that line out farther. Take this guy, project him out farther. And you can see, based on how I set this up, this is going to generally get distorted relatively quickly. So hopefully we're not projecting out too far forward. Okay. So then from there, I'm going to go ahead and take this, and from our depth guess, right, because that was where we made our initial depth guess, so we don't compound our errors, we only need to make 2 depth guesses. We're going to do the opposite catty corner there, and we're just going to draw from that corner in through this corner here. So from there, we can take that, we can extend that line, and that's going to give us our intersection. And pull that line down. Oh. And again, we can just come in here and extend that through from that corner up through, and we actually need to extend this guy. So I'm going to go ahead, you can see how some of this can start to get confusing pretty quickly. I'm going to turn off my ground stuff so I can actually see what I'm doing. So extend that through, we need that line as well. So then from that bottom corner here to this corner here, we can take this up and scale it. Okay, and just now this is starting to get a little bit confusing, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to show you what I've just done. I went ahead and drew a surface right in there, so we're starting to see how this is going to start to project forward. And so this is our line that we projected through. Pull that down. Okay, and this is just a rinse, wash, and repeat at this point. And you can see that this is going to get quite distorted quite quickly. So we'll go ahead and save this. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and not extend this too far, because at this point we've probably gone beyond what the cone of vision for the 2-point perspective is going to be able to see. You can see that we'll be building out beyond that. Okay, so hopefully you guys position, the way that you guys can actually adjust that is if you pull these station or the vanishing points out farther away, you're going to start to flatten out the image or the perspective on it. And so by adjusting those vanishing points, you're going to be adjusting the field of view. Okay. So what I'll end up doing here is I'll go ahead and draw. We'll take this and I'll extend this out. So I'm going to take this, and that's 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, and 24 feet. And my students probably enjoyed my ability to do the counting on that. So I'm going to go ahead and go and project that back to there. And so assuming I'm going to cut short the wall here, since I have a little bit of a distortion, but this is going to essentially give us the 24 foot instead of 28 foot, so we can use that to draw our ground line here. From there, again, we have that one set up. So now we can basically, assuming that you've gone all the way to the 28 feet, you can draw the extent of the room in your perspective. All right, and then from there, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to repeat those things. We're going to take these three guys, and I'm going to go ahead and extend these lines out as well. So we can draw those lines out. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that guy. And so we have drawn this other diagonal here that we need to get. And so where's our depth guess? So we'll turn on this guy here so we can see where that corner was again. We're going to draw that diagonal up through that intersection here. All right, and we actually have that sitting right there. So from there, we can go ahead and scale this up. Or extend that line. Use a good vocabulary here. So extend that line up, draw that line down, connect those lines. And you can see where I'm connecting these things. Again, we'll extend that line. And pull it down. And you can see at this point we're starting to get a little bit distorted here. It's about the same moment. Alright. Alright, and so from this point we're ready to start to really extend this out and draw the ground line here. And so I'm going to turn back on that piece of layer, essentially that layer trace. So we can take this line that was moving through our 12 feet back, and I'm going to go ahead and extend that out. We're going to draw that out like that. I'm going to go ahead and draw that back. So this is 12 feet forward. That's 12 feet forward. Okay. And assuming your room height is 8 feet tall, like that plane has been drawn, or it's actually 9 feet tall in the drawing, so you could extend this up. We'll go ahead and do that just so we can be accurate here. I'm going to go ahead and just go 1 foot up. Drawing a line through there. We're going to go ahead and scale this through. Because that's in the same plane there, it's also going to be the same plane here. So we can go ahead and connect that back. And then we can go ahead, if we're going to be drawing the boundaries of our room here in blue, instead of just drawing the ground, we can just draw that back. We can do the same thing in the opposite direction. Scale that up and back. On the ground, 12 feet over, 9 feet up. Okay, so we can take that and then draw that back. You can see this is starting to get confusing here, so this is where we want to use multiple layers of trace to accomplish this. Then as we start to peel some of this away, we can start to see some of the intersections here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and grab this guy. I'm going to go ahead and extend him out and through where those guys actually intersect. And go ahead and project that line up. I'm going to figure out the height of that by taking this intersection along one of those measured depth guess picture planes, figuring that out, so that we know that that intersection happens right there. Okay. So what that tells us is that then when we come in here and draw through there, we should be able to extend that line. Okay. So that's 9 feet tall, that's also 9 feet tall, so these lines actually do intersect. Take that and pull that down. Okay, so now we can go ahead and start to draw some of this. A 9-foot tall mark. We've done that right. This should go straight up and down. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So we're going to go ahead and in K-State purple, we'll do the last layer. We'll actually start to draw some of the boundaries of the room here. So purple. And so then once we know certain things, we can go ahead and draw that geometry. And since some of these things are going to be outside our cone of vision here, I'm going to go ahead and just extend these down now. This is how you'd probably represent this. Okay. And so what we can do then is we can turn off that. And now we're looking at the interior of the room here. I'll go ahead and select that so you can see that a little more clearly. You'll note that these guys are in perspective because we're in a room. There's going to be a distortion out. So these walls in reality actually connect. But because of the way the perspective is constructed, there's a distortion that unfolds the space slightly so that we can actually see into it. And so these things continue back behind us in our peripheral vision. And so from there you can start to subdivide this out, utilizing your grids and calculating coordinate points. So if we wanted to start to draw a wall in here, draw a dining table that sat in footprint here, we could take that extend that over. Let me turn those things off. We can start to see how that footprint starts to emerge in our flood line here. And then you would just essentially figure out what height you needed to project this up towards. And let's go ahead and turn that on for a second just so I can copy my vanishing points and utilize those. So that's the height of our guy. That can then be, once you know one measurement, you just use your vanishing points and project. And you're going to start to see some of these things emerge. Okay. So then what we can do, I'm just going to erase some of this so I can clean this up a little bit. We'll select these guys. And then using your eraser you can start to clean up and show how this stuff actually is going to start to look. Okay. Alright. And that's going to be how you guys are going to draw in, do Control A, 2-point perspective. Okay. There you go.